Show on 102.7 FM, featuring special guests with your host, Lady Grace. Now let's get started.
4 minutes down after the hour here of 7 a.m. or 7. Grace. 4 minutes after the hour of 9 o'clock here on 102.7 FM. It's okay because I was referring to May as June and stuff happens.
Yeah.
So anyhow, the weather is beautiful weather today in St. Martin. Of course, again, like I said earlier, there's more rain in the forecast for today, so just be on your guard for that. I don't like when it rains, though. With the aftermath is that you look out and you see the islands green and beautiful.
It's also hot.
Well, that too, we have that coming because the hurricane season actually kicks off on June 1st. So, again, like you said it too in your live, that it's something that people don't like to talk about, but it's there. It's there. So we got to prepare for that too. My guest this morning is a leader of the PFP party, MP Melissa Gumbs. She'll be joining me for the full hour this morning. MP, good morning. How you doing?
Morning, Grace. Happy to be here. As I got here early to beat the rain, because if you see the clouds banking up outside, I didn't want to risk being late.
Right.
But definitely, always urging people to stay vigilant. Hurricane season is coming up. Might start earlier as it has every year, as you know. So just have people be careful.
And the northern side actually called it yesterday. I wasn't aware of that when they canceled the Miami Grand Cas yesterday.
Yeah.
They said that rain was in the forecast later in the
and
afternoon.
they take that very seriously. So
and
it was a finale, So they said, well, unfortunately, it's canceled. We'll be back in 2025.
Yeah, and it did pour.
Yeah, it did.
Pour. Thank God I was at home. Now, MP, we have a lot to talk about this morning, and I'm so glad that since after Monday's meeting, you requested this interview here in the Breakfast Lounge. So now let's talk about the second attempt to admit the incoming members of Parliament, Richnel Brugge and Vinod Kotai, to the legislature. That failed due to a lack of quorum and seeing the Super 7 walk out. Now, with just 4 members, island MPs who are currently off island, you see that the UPNA coalition is requesting this meeting for Friday. How do you, as leader of the PFP, respond to this?
I found it a little interesting because we were all there Monday. We could have handled this Monday very easily if quorum had been maintained. Instead, the members of the opposition chose to kind of grandstand and point out the fact that members of coalition were not present in the hall, even though if they're not there, they're not there with notice. But the irony is that I think in their haste to, the weak attempt to, try to embarrass us by rushing a meeting to be called Friday, maybe so they could appear to look like superheroes coming to save the day for Mr. Brugge and Mr. Kotai, they neglected to remember the fact or pay attention to the fact that the SG of Parliament is also off island.
Correct, right.
So actually, even though I'm second vice chair of Parliament and I could call a meeting, I can't, because I cannot call a meeting without a griffier, and we don't have our acting in place as yet. She will be starting, I believe, next week. So either way, we will have to wait until they come back from Parlatino, to which they're leaving Monday, to be able to have that meeting. I mean, I hope, based on the very emotional press release that was put out about this meeting request and their sudden urge to actually do the business of Parliament and do the people's work, that they would maybe consider canceling Parlatino, but I can't speak for them.
Right. But to the point as to when you see that these 7 members walk out of the meeting, how did you feel about that? I mean, your personal feelings about that, because now you see the opposition is saying, hey, let's get this over with. When at that moment, then and there, you could have done that.
Grace, for 4 years, from 2020 to this year, my father, my partner, always said, you're too nice as the opposition now. You're too nice. Because for 7.5 months, while the farmer coalition was one man down in the form of MP William Allen when he was away, we held quorum as opposition. Even if my colleagues in opposition did not want to, PFP was there to hold that quorum, because at the end of the day, the business of Parliament has to continue. Now, I'm not saying that, walking out in a meeting where you feel your minister getting beat up on, or you feel that you disagree with the discussion or so. I'm not saying that that's not a political tactic that you cannot deploy. But at the end of the day, the Constitution says that Parliament is 15 members. So now, a Constitution that we all swore an oath to uphold and respect, you're disrespecting. And by extension, disrespecting the people. I saw that in the opening of Parliament, when we all swore in, everyone made great platitudes of, we're going to work together. The politics is done. Even an MP who I don't even know what the attendance rate could be said, for him, the politics is done. And you choose to walk out in a meeting literally just to approve credentials to make sure that Parliament is at its full complement. And, this is something that to me, it was a little hurtful. I think it's also very unnecessary because you open yourself and the Parliament up to damage. Because at the end of the day, you're not embarrassing me. I don't feel embarrassed about that. I feel embarrassed for you because I hear what the public is saying. I, listen to what the callers were saying on your open mic yesterday. And, I recognize some people that chose not to vote for the big in the Parliament right now. So I think a little self-reflection and introspection is necessary to kind of determine if this is the way you want to continue.
Right.
Because it's confusing to me. And then the meeting request came out and I said, but what? We were all there. And again, you're in such a rush to kind of portray yourself as being the Avengers of St. Martin that you forget to even think about what is necessary to call a meeting of Parliament. And I'm sorry, we don't have a SG. And what I won't allow is for people to pretend that the chair of Parliament or the two vice chairs are not willing to call a meeting. You didn't pay attention to the fact that the griffier is also off island. So what are we really talking about?
Right. Yeah. Now, by doing this now, we see that there will be a third option where the leader, basically President of Parliament, MP Westcott, is calling a third meeting to admit the MPs upon her return. That is within 2 weeks.
Yes.
And court, she says, is an option if the gridlock continues.
Yes. That is, I think, drawing on a case that occurred in Curacao. I think we missed Hache or so, and I can't remember the detail. Power went off on their little interview yesterday, so they're probably going to recall that before the end of the week. So to in advance anticipate what is going to be said. Indeed, we, myself, former MP Peterson, MP Emmanuel, always used to say, well, they need us here to hold quorum. Yeah, we said that, but we stayed. We sat down. Really what it boils down to. We can all trade shots, we can all trade barbs, but the video facts are there. Nobody could say that it was a meeting where I wasn't there. And if I wasn't there, it was with notice and valid notice. I try my best not to miss meetings of Parliament if I can help it. So I think, they would be hard pressed to try this stunt again.
Right. So when you now see if after the third attempt it don't succeed and you decide now to take this to court, what are the procedures? What is the process? How long does this take then?
I would let MP Westcott would probably have to explain that a bit more in depth. Like I said, I was told about it. We discussed it briefly, but we just got MP Roseberg dropped some of the research about that particular case in Curacao to me, but I haven't had a chance to review it as yet. So we'll have to identify if that's the best way to go. But I would hope that people who said on February 10th that it's time, we just care about continuity and we care about stability and we care about the people's business, would not have it come to that point.
Right. You have a lot of disgruntled people out there, again, like you mentioned, and I've experienced, over the past 2 days, we've heard them. We've heard the cries of the people over the past 2 days on phone calls. And again, it's frustrating that, we've come to this point that after a government serves 4 terms in office, and then you have a situation here where a new government is elected, that we cannot seem to compromise and say, not even the word compromise, but come to a decision and say, okay, let's see them, what if they can do the job better than us.
Yes. And I think, and I said that, I said it as well after election, like it comes to a point where stability has to matter in general. It can't just matter when you're the one.
It's not about you. It's
not about you. It's about the country. Exactly. If that's what we're all saying, that if that's what we're saying, that's the talk that we're all talking, then what is the walk that we're all walking? You understand? So for me, it has always been, like I said, the business of Parliament has to continue. It didn't matter what there were meetings that were called that I gave quorum for when William Mann was off island. I didn't even want to attend because I disagreed with what was happening.
Right.
But I came anyway because the meeting has to occur. You understand? And the people have to have a voice. That is really what it boils down to. You want to be the voice of the people, then you have to actually be in a meeting.
Right.
To be the voice of the people.
Correct.
You know, on the record. So yeah, that's it's unfortunate.
Right. When you see one of the members of the coalition opposition party speak about showing up, and then you actually know that was a jab at one of your members of parliament who's currently off island. How is she doing?
She's doing well, you know. MP Weaver is off island for personal reasons.
Right.
I will not divulge, you know, the details of that. But I also think that that's something that we have to bear in mind. You know, persons can choose not to share every aspect of what is going on in their life, even with parliament. You know, I will know it because I'm her party leader and I'm her faction leader. But it does not mean that that's going to be broadcast. And again, this is someone who makes every effort to come to every meeting, to be present. And I think to get on like that because they're away now for personal reasons, where again, for 7.5 months, when your father was out filing for personal reasons, we didn't make noise, we just held quorum. I think that, you know, is that's beyond me. But again, I can only be responsible for myself, my behavior, how I approach the business of parliament, and this is how I'm choosing to approach it. We hold quorum, even though people told me you're too kind, you're too nice, Melissa. So I'm like, yes, because I'm elected to be a voice. That's really what it boils down to. I'm elected to be a voice, and this is how I choose to represent. Because if the parliament and such is a reflection of the people, I don't think that is working for the opposition right now. Again, if I listen to what your caller said yesterday, if I listen to what people are telling me, even just walking here, you know, literally, people, they put out the promo for this interview. Walk in here, people say, hit him hard. I'm like, you know, I will hit as I need to hit with the facts, because nothing I'm saying is a lie.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Now, MP, amid widespread concerns about the stability of the current coalition government, particularly with the involvement of your party, PFP, have there been any discussions with opposition members aimed at bolstering the alliance you are part of?
No, not to my knowledge. Not in terms of what, having one of them join up.
Yeah.
No, they have not. Not to my knowledge. From my person, no. I always keep it cordial, Grace. I keep it civil. I keep it professional. I think even you know, the most volatile members of the opposition can attest to that. That I try to just keep things where, you know, there can be communication still. I don't believe in not having that communication happen, because we're all there to represent all the people of St. Martin. So for me, there's not been any discussion about that.
Right.
Yeah.
Has there, of course, we've heard about the after the elections of January that we're, you know, the opposition, you know, members of the opposition were actually requesting dialogue with the various political parties. That didn't happen either.
No, I mean, dialogue.
Talks, basically. Talks, you know, so, to join.
No, dialogue happened. Discussions happened, as they should, because again, you have to kind of see, even if persons are going to be in opposition, you have to kind of see where you might align, because you're going to maybe sometimes depend on, you know, again, as we see from the last term, you're going to depend on sometimes opposition agreeing with you. You understand? So you should always keep those lines open. And I think that everybody was pretty cordial, but at a certain point in time, it said, you know, we're going to move forward with what is here, with the four parties that signed an agreement. It is the persistence. It is the persistence to allude to, well, you know, maybe we need a different constellation, etc. No, then you're bordering from just dialogue to bitterness, and that, to me, I think, is what is also rubbing the public the wrong way. Like we're now past it. We're in May. You know, the government is just sworn in. Let's drop the attempts at breakage or at cracking or whatever, and just do your work, basically. So I think that that is maybe to where there's been some stuff lost in communication, but discussions can always happen. It does not mean that something is going to move forward. Right. And I think when a decision is made to move forward with what is there, that has to be respected.
You mentioned the word breakage. You sense that the opposition, UPNA coalition, is trying to break this government?
For sure. That is what they do best. I think if we look at while the hand may not have been particularly visible, it has always been there from certain members of the now opposition parties, current and former. You understand? I mean, that is the public secret that exists on St. Martin, where you hear that so-and-so went. I mean, it has happened since before we were a country, you know, and having grown up in this political game, I know how it goes. But like I said, you can definitely say that, you can attempt it. And even what is said on the floor of Parliament is an attempt to, I guess, diminish and to strain and to put wear and tear. But there is dialogue happening in coalition all the time. Especially we still have a veteran in Sarah Westcott Williams. Myself, I don't class myself as a veteran, but like I said, I grew up in this. I've seen the tricks firsthand from many of them. So it is up to us now to continue to guide, whomever has come into Parliament in how to navigate these sometimes dangerous waters, because the attempts will be made at all. And it's gotten to a point where, Grace, the politicking has gotten to a point where we're coming to you and we're talking about, but your father's sick, we could help you with this. Your mother need that, we heard, and such. And that to me is disgusting. It's nasty. And it's not something that I tolerate. Nobody comes to me with that because again, I've seen it all. And I think that to me is where we're bordering on just interference and just sabotage. And I don't think that's fair for St. Martin. Again, if stability was what mattered for the last 4 years, then it has to matter for the next 4, even if you're not the one sitting in the seat.
Right.
Yeah.
You mentioned interference. Do you sense in somehow there was some kind of interference from outside forces where it came to the point of trying to remove the chair of Parliament when Mr. MP Duran
that tactic was very, very reminiscent of my former colleague who did not win back his seat for the Up Party. But it's that's how it goes. You just have to be 1, 2, 3, 4 steps ahead to see it coming and to just kind of dodge it when it's coming. So, yeah.
Okay. Sorry. Before.
Yeah.
It's basically playing itself off.
Yeah. No. So now it's in boxing how they see a telegraph your punches. That's basically what's happening.
Now, MP, why have you chosen not to pursue a ministerial seat, a departure from the approach of previous political leaders? Could you elaborate on the rationale behind this decision?
Well, we believe at PFP, we've always talked about putting the best person forward for the job. I would never say that I would never pursue a ministerial seat, but in this instance, with us holding the portfolio of the Minister of Rami, we had the best person for the job already, and that's not me. In the event that I would have to take up a post, I would of course do it in service to the party and the country, but that's not my goal right now, and I'm not in a rush. I think like most young politicians have been to be a minister. I think that we need to first, cut our teeth in Parliament, push in Parliament, because in Parliament is where the voice of the people lies, and that's where the power lies. And, I think it also says something to taking away strength in Parliament, which we saw actually for the last term. You had quite a few strong MPs go up into executive, and they left a rather weak coalition in Parliament. And I'm not willing to do that as well to this one. So I chose to do that. And Rayon and I also had a bit of an agreement that if one of us is going to become a minister, the two of us cannot go up.
Correct.
And of course, if I were to take a post, he would then be next in line to Parliament. And I said, this time is going to be you. He made me not happy, but that's the internal discussions that we have had as a party to make sure that there's strength on either side of the aisle.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now, your decision to temporarily delegate the portfolio of Vromi to Minister Veronica Janssen-Webster, who serves as the VSA Minister of the URSM. Now, that's raising some questions. What prompted this move?
Well, we, as with Vromi, we also hold Deputy Prime Minister. So it was already in my mind to say that the acting, because we have just the one ministry, the acting Minister of Vromi should be the Minister of VSA, because then you have that cohesion between Vromi, Prime Minister, VSA, etc. So there is that circle then completed. So that was basically the intention behind that. I would have preferred that we had been able to swear in our minister candidate for Vromi, but as you can read in the paper today, there are some questions surrounding what is happening there with that particular national decree for Rayon Peterson.
Now, speculation, while we're on this topic, speculation is also rife that PFP should have postponed Minister of Plenipotentiary Patrice Gumbs going to The Hague, and instead temporarily entrusted him with the Vromi ministry until a suitable candidate was found. How do you respond to this suggestion?
The suggestion was indeed made to me directly as well, and I said, I disagree, because the state of politics right now in the Netherlands is such that you need to put that strong face forward for that representation up there. I did not want, even though I know Patrice is 100% capable of fulfilling any role within government, considering his experience working in the apparatus of government, it's not something that I was willing to do. Because I believe that we need to hit the ground running from the municipal plenipotentiary's role and put a strong face forward, and also start to embed ourselves in the ever-changing political landscape of the Netherlands right now. They have their own tumultuous things that they're dealing with. So that's really what drove that decision. It was indeed an option for us. But I did not want to leave the seat of the municipal plenipotentiary open. Indeed, there is a deputy, but I preferred both of them have to go up and put that united front forward at the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
Seems like basically now the ongoing controversy, which we're going to get to, surrounding the nominee for the Ministry of Romy, Rayon Peterson, has dominated recent news cycles. Could you shed some light on the status of his appointment? We see this morning that the governor has not yet sent unsigned national decrees to the king.
And that to me is concerning. And not just because it's Rayon, but because then that means you have a governor that is acting in contravention to his regulation. The Reglement Gouverneur, the regulation of the governor, is very clear in what happens when a decree is not to be signed. It has to go to the kingdom. In Dutch they say terstond, which is immediately, basically. And that to me, which means that they should have been sent to the Netherlands as of Friday when the swearing-in happens. The swearing-in was at about 10 a.m. We started a little late. We finished 11:30, 12 o'clock. From then, the background, because obviously it's not the governor sending an email, it's his staff that is preparing that packet to be sent up. I think, from that moment, as we boarded the buses to head to the government building, they should have been in the background sending those decrees to the kingdom.
Right.
But it hasn't happened. So now I'm wondering first of all, I'm curious to hear what even the kingdom would say, because now you have a representative of the king acting in contravention to his regulation. So essentially a rogue governor. And what does that say for, the stability of our autonomy, first of all, and the stability of the kingdom?
You refer to as a rogue governor?
Yeah. You're deviating from your regulation. The rules are clear. If we're all about following rules, which I believe the governor is, as he's alluded to in his speech on swearing-in day, then why haven't you followed these rules?
Right.
That's my question then. As I'm not prime minister, I'm just a faction leader in parliament. We haven't had any faction leaders meetings as yet with the governor after the following the first ones we had after the election, immediately after the election. So I can't really speak as to his mindset or his mentality right now, but I would question it. Why haven't they been sent?
And that's something actually Mr. Peterson has done. He sent a letter. Has he received any response to his letter?
No, not as yet.
Right. Now you see, but the governor on April 24th of this year publicly announced by a press release to the people of St. Martin that he intended to sign only 7 of the 9 national decrees, whereas he had received 9 in total.
Yes.
Right. But upon his decision, he decided that he would only sign 7 of them.
Yeah. So what was explained to us is that there were concerns with the fact that Rayon has a conviction on his record. However, as we've explained very openly and very transparently, and this is also to kind of counter the line of thought that was happening on a little interview yesterday on the northern side, that there's something that's not right, or there's something missing, and Rayon is not being transparent. I don't know how much more transparent we can be. When the appeal on his case was handed down to him as the verdict, everything was posted on Facebook, the videos, the verdict, the explanation of what had occurred, The moment the judge basically ruled, it is understandable that you shoved the drunk driver that almost killed you in a moment of shock and fear, and that will stay, but we do not believe that it warrants a punishment, which right now, the current common law jurisprudence, the current law that exists says that is not a conviction, actually. A conviction without punishment does not technically stand as a conviction. And that's the point that we're trying to make. So, and further to that, when you look at why the screening process exists, it's to make sure that we are putting persons of the highest integrity and ethical conduct in the role. If you look at the things that have occurred over the last few governments, can we say that all, we have clear-cut examples of what has to do with bad ethics in governance, poor governance, in fact, across a variety of topics, whether it's public spending, whether it's management in general of a ministry, and so forth. So for me, I don't see how me shoving, because I take Rion out of it, and I say that as well. I said that as well to the governor in our meeting, and I say it again to the public, and I said it on my live stream. I take Rion out of it because I know that there are forces out there that don't want Rion as Minister of Rum. Let's cut to the chase. I'm not going to, tap dance around it. I don't know how to tap dance, so I'm just going to be blunt. We know that there are people that do not want Rion as minister. There have been people in the political arena, in parliament, that have told me my people would have an issue with Rion as Minvrami. Okay, that's fine. Then the discussion can stop. But take him out of it and apply the same scenario to me or to yourself, or I'll go even further, to other prominents and partners in the community who have done their work, who have contributed to the community, who have worked hard, who have integrity and ethics, but in this moment of being almost killed by a drunk driver, have shoved somebody and then proceed to be victimized by the police. Because that's essentially what happened to Rion. Take him out of it. You mean to tell me in a similar scenario, a Kenya Joseph can be minister, a Ife Badajo, a Mackie Brooks, you understand? Like those people can't be minister in a similar scenario, because that's what I think about. I think about, if this is the precedent you want to set now, what does it bode for St. Martiners who may have not even a issue, a hiccup, on their record? And in fact, again, as a conviction without punishment, it's not really a record. So that to me has been the confusion we've had as a party. And I know that there have been attempts made to say, well, all of a sudden PFP don't like the screening because it don't favor them. That's absolutely not the case, because the screening hasn't favored anybody. We've always said integrity and ethics have to be what you look at. I've also said you need to make these things transparent. You cannot just, as a governor or as a formateur even, decide that this is how you want to interpret it and go. When we had a debate in 2020 on the screening law of Curacao and the need for screening law here, majority of the feedback from the then coalition was not really in favor of a screening law. Most don't believe we need a screening at all,
right?
Which I disagree with. We believe we need a screening, but it has to be clear. And as a party, we try to screen in advance of putting people on a list, which is why we were confident in submitting Rion to be a minister candidate. We don't have access like in the Netherlands or in the other islands, in the British Islands, where you basically can say, I want Grace on my list, so I need to background check her. In Holland, you can get the whole kit and caboodle before you even get to be number 10, number 20, number 30, or whatever on the list. You understand? We don't have that access here. I cannot, as a party leader, go to VDSM and the prosecutor and say, I need to know this about this person before I put him on my list. I would love for that to be the case. It would solve a lot of this hiccup now. So we try to do as much as we can in advance, you understand? But obviously, this is something that we will continue to champion, because we've always championed the fact that there needs to be something set out. It is a big undertaking, because when you look at Curacao screening law, we've consulted our colleagues down there as well. Many people,
This is the screening of ministers.
Of ministers,
because
yes.
The motion actually to screen MPs has not the support. Right.
No. And again, in that 2020 meeting with the Prime Minister President, I said, parties have to now undertake screening their people before they put them on a list. If they do, that's up to them. We do, because that's a decision we made as a party, as best as we can, without having the legal tools at our disposal. But when you look at Curaçao's screening law, many lawyers worked on that, many legislative lawyers. And still, it doesn't really, they themselves will tell you it doesn't really fit. So they themselves are examining how to adjust and tweak to make it fit. So, we can take that example, we can take Aruba's example, and we can look at how it is handled there and then make it fit in Martin. What we have governs the conduct of a minister once they're a minister. And that's also where we have disagreed now with the decision of the governor not to sign. Because if you even if you look at the fact of a conviction, let's say that Rayan had gotten 100 hours community service, which is a punishment for that, right? Okay, that is what they say in Dutch. We've passed that station. We've long gone. You understand? We've left Amsterdam. We're in Maastricht. Okay. So it doesn't really weigh. And that is what our current thing looks at. It looks at what are you doing as a minister. It looks at, are you abusing your office to give out land or give out contracts or give out whatever to persons as a favor. It looks at what have you promised people. Whether it's a permit or it's a particular license or so, and that is where that national ordinance kind of kicks in after the fact. So to be told that a conviction without punishment, which is not really a conviction, is what's stopping Rayan from being a minister, it kind of baffles me.
But didn't it, when you decided to actually choose him to become the next minister of Vromi, and knowing all of this, that that it would probably be somewhat kind of difficult for him to pass that screening process, why did you still go ahead and choose him to become the minister?
Brian?
Yeah.
No,
because of the past. Because let me put it this way.
Yeah.
How far back does the screening process go? When you're screening someone, how many years?
It looks at everything. It looks at everything.
From childhood, you're saying?
I don't want to say from childhood. I think from maybe the time that you're able to make decisions for yourself.
Wow. So 18 years.
Yeah, let's say. But we put him forward because, in fun fact, in the appeal case, when the verdict was rendered, he was already a sitting member of parliament. And, the judge in question made a joke and said, and now you can be a minister.
Oh.
Because they knew that a conviction without punishment should not be a hindrance to you being a minister. Because it does not count as a record, essentially. So that's why, we were basically confused, because we're like, okay, the judge made this remark in the appeal. 9 lawyers have told us, you should be fine. We checked double, triple, and quadruple check this. As I said, as a party that focuses on integrity, on ethics, and on good governance, we would never have put forward somebody that we knew could not pass a screening.
Right.
So it's not like I was trying to call a bluff or whatever. We had full confidence in it. So imagine our shock after all of this consultation with different lawyers, etc., have explained to us, you are essentially good to go, and he received a clean VOG, which it literally, there's nothing on it. The VDSM says geen bijzonderheden, which means no peculiarities.
Correct.
What are we doing? So that really befuddled us. And I think, that was us allowing the process to happen and following the process, not trying to hinder it or whatever, sitting back and letting the process happen. And now you kind of get told, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, then if you're not going to sign, that's fine. Then I would prefer the opinion then of the kingdom, if that's the move, because that's the only option you have.
You've contacted the kingdom?
No. We haven't.
Letters, nothing?
We haven't contacted. I mean, the letter is there.
Right.
With this article today in the Herald, it might have to be sent because, as PFP, we've had no issue challenging a governor either. We wouldn't be here if we hadn't challenged the decision of the former governor to have a postulation date 1 week after government fell. We wouldn't have been able to contest the election of 2020 if we had allowed that to stand. But if you're going to put yourself as the essentially the person responsible for also helping to uphold our constitution, then you need to act that way.
Right. Can he play Pontius Pilate in a situation like this where he decide, okay, you know what? I wash my hands on this. I'm just going to pass it on to the Netherlands to deal with it, which he hasn't done yet. But as governor of St. Martin, say, okay, let me pass it on to the acting governor. That can't be possible either.
No. He has to make that decision. He's not incapacitated.
Right. Correct.
So he has to make that decision. And I think
but how long can this go on?
And that's the question.
How long can this go on?
And that's the question. That's really the question. And again, our laws do not say that you can't be minister because of a conviction. It looks at after the fact. If this had occurred after the fact, and even then there are regulations in the Constitution, that's Article 36 of the Constitution, that basically says, if you are a sitting minister and you are convicted or so, and you receive a penalty that is less than a year, you can decide if you're going to step down or not. That's the reality of it. So even there, in where it is regulated in the Constitution, there's wiggle room. So even if, let's say, this did not exist, Rayon or whoever becomes minister, let's just say person A becomes minister. Person A gets into a situation like what has occurred with this accident and such. They get convicted. 100 hours community service, or 3 months or whatever. They can say, all right, I'm not going to resign because I haven't even hit the year that's required by the Constitution to actually suggest that I need to step down.
Right.
And again, these are our laws. These are our laws. And as to what, how long can the situation go on? It should not go on. So I would urge, and again, as faction leader, as someone who is meant to be the voice of the people, I would urge the governor to take a look at this article in the Daily Herald today and, basically say, it's either you're signing or you're sending it up. Those are the options that you have. You talk about Pontius Pilate. The washing of the hands is sending it to the kingdom. If that's a decision that he wants to make based on his own opinion of what is there, then okay, let's see what they have to say.
Right.
I don't like that because, again, formation of a government is a local autonomous process that should be followed. And if you again look at our existing laws, look at the fact that they govern. They say what happens when you're already a minister. Look at the fact that Rayon does not have a conviction. You understand, by law right now. So it's those are the things that I think are forming questions in people's minds, and we remain committed to just being transparent about it. That's why we did the live stream on Sunday where Rayon came on himself and explained. That's why we've sent our letters. We've written letters to the governor explaining by step. We do a screening to look at integrity, to look at ethics, and this right here, it has nothing to do with that.
Why do you believe Mr. Peterson is basically sort of, I don't want to use the term blocked, but use of a better word, that's exactly what it is, from entering this ministry?
I can speculate on I can speculate all day, and well, no, most of it is not speculation, because as I said earlier, I know that there are persons that do not want him to be Minister of Rami.
Why?
I think because as a party, we have said that the show stops, the fun stops. Once we have a candidate in that ministry, and I think that frightens people. I would expect if I were a developer that was just willy-nilly cutting up hills and doing whatever I pleased and as I wished in a country that I'm just taking from, I would be afraid. I would be afraid of Rayon as Minister of Rami. I would be afraid of anybody from PFP, actually, because let's face facts. If it's not Rayon, even if it was me or anyone else going into that seat, the same mentality would exist, because we have an ideology when it comes to protecting our environment, protecting our natural resources, and making sure that, we do not continue to pave over literally everything that makes us attractive to visitors. And I think we've been very vocal about that for 4 years. You understand?
You think he gets in there, he opens a Pandora box, and then what?
I think he opens a Pandora's box, and I think people who have made promises, on their way out, or maybe with the confidence that they would be on their way back in, I think people stand to lose a lot. I think a lot of campaign funding was maybe based around, what can I get once the dust has settled. And again, these are public secrets, maybe, but I think everybody, the school children say, etc. But it's to a point now where it's so blatant that I think we can just call it what it is. And I know that it's been communicated to us. We've heard it from whether it's coming out of over the hill, whether it's coming from Radio Soccer Garden. We've heard, Rayon's not going to be minister. That has been said to persons that move in circles, that maybe the people saying that don't know that I also know these people, and that we hear these things. And that's what's been said. And I think it's distressing a bit, Grace, to think that that hyper-capitalism has taken such a hold on us that that this is the road that we will be going, And I don't say that to say that I think half of you has been compromised, but I think, people are not dumb. The people are not stupid. Contrary to what the former minister of Rami alluded to, people figure out things on their own. Semantic people are not dumb. They know what is going on, and they say it to us. If people that don't even know me could stop me and say, in the middle of Jove, we into your boy and we don't stand for it, I don't know what to tell you anymore.
Wow.
I would urge everybody who's listening, if you're sitting across the aisle from me in Parliament, to think about that for a minute. Think about our facts, because that's what we're dealing with.
What about the land at the down at the across from the airport? What is the current situation where that is concerned?
Well, since the government has just sworn in the acting minister of Rami, we have set a few priorities to kind of ascertain the status of several different pockets of questions that we've received from the community, because you have a lot of things that are going on, Grace. You have
The property was sold. The property was sold.
I'm waiting for that confirmation. I'm not trying to speak about things that again.
Mhm.
And no, I try to keep it in Parliament, because I'm not going to be that type of MP that's just kind of poking every day like, hey, you know. So I say, let them breathe for this week. But we've made our list of what is priority for to be found out and to be discovered. Rayon has, that plan for Rami as well. So that is something that is being worked on, and we'll know when we know. But there's so much happening beyond that. There's situations in Beacon Hill that are occurring. There's developments in Point Blanche that are happening. I took a drive there already, because everyone's taking a drive. And sometimes you see concrete being poured and you're like, where did this come from? I took a drive in Point Blanche, and I see again on the cliffside, you see a 2 to 4 story development coming. And I'm thinking, coastal degradation is a reality of climate change. I've heard from people living in that area that there's a cave under that space and such. So when degradation continues to occur and the building drops, who's at fault? The person that built it, the person living in it, the person that gave the permit. You understand? So those are the things that I think people need to think about as we move forward. And these are the items that we're trying to find a little more clarity on.
Right.
Yeah.
You've been very outspoken about this.
Yeah.
In the past, I mean, a few months ago that you actually came out and were totally, basically put out a press release stating that you were shocked to see that how much construction was actually on concrete.
And it all has a ripple effect, Grace, because you're talking about buildings, but you know what else you're talking about with buildings? Not just concrete and degradation of the hillside and the coastline. Right. You're talking about electricity. You're talking about the infrastructure stress that I don't know if we could handle. And that I think that's another thing that we put as a priority then to discover in these first few weeks. Where are we at in terms of capacity, and what is the plan for when all of these developments come online? Because remember, most of them are in construction. The ones that have been finished are not at 100%. So when they're 100% online, what does that mean? What does that mean for the grid? Because I can tell you what I think it means. It means that by the time hurricane season rolls around and the hotter months roll around, everybody gonna be burning the air cool. Big developments gonna be running their chillers, and what? Load shedding.
Load shedding.
Yes. And who's going to suffer from that load shedding? It's going to be the people that can't afford a generator. It's going to be those in the most vulnerable communities. It's that's who's going to suffer from it. That's who's going to suffer from it. Again, I live in Defiance, in a region, and we rarely lose power. With the last set of load shedding, there was a Sunday where we didn't have power for about 5 hours.
Wow.
That's nuts. You understand? We haven't seen this type of load shedding since the 90s. We talking hurricane before Lois, discovering, we have fireflies in this country because it was so dark that you could see fireflies. Wow. And I think that is something that that's why we talk about it, not because we're against progress, because that's what's been alluded to as well, but because every step has repercussions. It's ripple effects. You can build for sure, but that has an impact on my infrastructure. That has an impact on my people who live here all the time, who don't just come here for the winter, who don't just come here when they need to, dump some cash or whatever, wash some money and get out. We don't, they are the ones that are going to suffer from that. So I think that's something that we've been very public about, and that could probably contribute to why, the thought of Rayon sitting in the seat of the Minister of Rami kind of gives people heart palpitations.
What is it that in your opinion, why do you believe that previous government was so reluctant to actually tackle solar energy, seeing the fact that with these constant blackouts and the high prices after the hacking of the company, that would be the next thing, the next best thing for the country.
Yeah, I think renewable energy has been stalled because egos come into play, and everybody thinks they have a bright idea. You see it. The farmer, not even outgoing because she's gone. The former prime minister signs an agreement with Grid Market, right? All of a sudden, we find out GB is not party to that MOU. How?
Really?
They're the only electricity company there. So they don't sign on to Grid Market. Grid Market is continuing their work. And then it comes out that GB is pursuing the same type of project, but via the NRPB with a German company. So you have two companies doing the same energy mapping kind of, planning. But then you also hear still from the former minister of Ramin and the former minister of Tayat that they were looking at LNG. And I'm like, okay, so what's it gonna be? So, and that's really what it is. It's egos, and it's just a lack of commitment to one way forward. We can't all run in different directions. Like I if you play team sports, you know that at some point in time we all got to run the same way.
Correct.
And I don't see that really happening. So it's curious to me, but again, GB is one of those priorities that we've noted down. We also have tried to do our research as best we can, while not trying to insert ourselves into the functioning of any company. But basically, from what our research has shown, if your capacity is less than 100 megawatts, LNG as a whole doesn't really make sense. You understand? And this too has been cited sort of the feedback from GB. Right now, I don't think we average above 60. I don't know. Again, I would like to know what it would be if all the developments come online. It would be interesting to see what that would hold. But I do hope that, and I believe that with just that focus on a vision of moving us forward to a point where we can avoid the load shedding that I can see is going to be coming in the hotter months, I do have full faith that it will get done.
Right, right. I see that also today, it made the papers that the Prime Minister, Dr. Marcelina, who was accompanied by your acting Minister of Vromi, actually paid a surprise visit to GB yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, as her being the acting minister of a portfolio that basically the PFP is holding, will she be reporting back to you?
Yes. Okay. Well, not to me, of course. To Rayon, essentially.
To Rayon, right.
At the end of the day, if he's not made minister, as the leaked list of staff showed, will be still in the ministry. So that relationship has already been established, and I think it's working very well. I think the Minister of VSA knows what needs to be done. She has worked in government.
Sure.
She has some insight into Vrami, and into GB as well. Exactly. GB as well. So I think that, she has the knowledge, of course, to be able to convey back to Rayon what is necessary and what is happening. Yeah.
In the event, MP, that Mr. Peterson is unable to assume the position, who would be the next candidate in line?
We won't reveal that yet.
Okay.
But suffice it to say that they
have a candidate.
Oh yes, no, and they're preparing. They've been preparing, and we will see what happens. I think, like I said, with this article today, I think it's clear for the governor he has one of two options to take, and that is either you sign the decrees today actually, because right now we're more than 72 hours past swearing in and past you acting out of your regulation. So to, I think, save some face, I would just either sign today or send them up today.
And if he doesn't?
Article 25 of the reglement of the governor essentially alludes to, I believe, criminal prosecution.
Really?
Yes. Let me see if I have it with me, because I know I had a
criminal prosecution.
Yeah, because like I said, we've done some extensive research in this scenario, and that is the I was trying to find it, but I don't want to take too much time.
No, it's okay. We have about 7 more.
Okay, great. Let me see if I can grab it.
Yeah, because confusion. Okay. Yeah.
So yes, I got it. Article 25 of the states the governor is liable to prosecution provisions contained in the Ministerial Responsibility and Official Offences Act for members of Staff General, so basically ministers and state secretaries, if he deliberately fails to implement or cause to be implemented the provisions of these regulations or other legal regulations applicable in St. Martin, or royal decrees or decisions that are not legal regulations, but the implementation of which has been assigned to him. So the facts mentioned in Article 25, basically those boil down to crimes. Crimes.
And he is aware of this.
I mean, I would hope if you're taking a job that you read the regulation that governs your job.
Has also a legal background, so he should know that.
Yes.
Would this, if he still refuses to, could this lead to the removal of him as governor?
I believe so. It would be a first time.
Which is something I'm sure he doesn't want to see happen.
No, and I don't want to see it happen either.
No,
I think that especially considering the fact that he's a Simatana. But what we in 2019 have shown is that I don't frankly care where you're from. You just have to do the job according to what governs the job. That's really what it boils down to.
Right.
So, while I would hate to see it get to that point, the option is there. And we're not above, as PFP, as we've said repeatedly, holding our own accountable. It does not matter the role you hold. You still have to answer to the people that you call countrymen.
Right. And it's speculated that he's answering also to, it's been speculated. It's alleged.
Yeah.
He's also answering to outside forces out there.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've heard those rumors. I've heard those statements.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, yes, of
Right.
course. I allegedly would not, compromise myself for my, college roommate or best friend. But I think that, we have to hope that persons are operating from a high point of integrity, and that they simply operate within the parameters of the thing that regulates them. And that's really what it is. Right now, he's outside of his regulation. So I'm curious to see, how that will go.
Right.
The last time I think we had a hint of a governor acting outside his regulation was in 2015 or so. And that was about 2-3 months. And that,
what was that again? I can't remember.
well, if I can take this, since everybody talks about their father, if I could talk about mine.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, and that was in that particular in that particular instance. So I think that did not end well for that governor, because in the end it just had to the decree to dissolve parliament had to be signed,
Right.
and it happened because then we had the 2016 election.
Correct.
So I think that the governor spoke about common law and norms and constitutional norms and so forth in his speech on swearing in day. So if we look at commonly what has happened, it's you either sign or you send. And that's where we are right now.
You're saying 72 hours.
Well, I mean, we're more than that, because
More than
swearing
that,
in
of
was
course.
Friday.
It
Yeah.
was Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah. Seeing that tomorrow is also Himmel's Fire Staff.
Yes.
So
Ascension
that's
Day.
Ascension Day. So that's a holiday.
Yeah.
So nobody works on that day.
Yeah.
So then you probably would have to wait until Friday.
Yeah. No. So that's why I say seeing this, it's 10 o'clock. It's what, 3 p.m. in the Netherlands?
Right.
4 p.m.
6 hours.
Yeah.
Yes.
So 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
So I think that if it's going to be sent, now would be the time.
Yeah.
Because then you can just make end of business. And then or sign, because again, like I said, I that's really where it's at. The laws are clear, and I think that they are not up for further personal interpretation.
Right.
Yeah.
And once the documents are signed, and then the swearing in takes place.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what would happen.
Right. And you, and of course, I'm sure a lot of supporters of the PFP and St. Martin in general, because we did not really discuss the now party leader also, who's facing basically the same situation where he passed the screening and has not been sworn in either.
Yeah.
So I hope when he gets back, we'll have him here on the Breakfast Lounge so he can speak for himself.
Yes.
You basically covered the grounds for the PFP party and your candidate, minister, Mr. Rayon Peterson, this morning. Anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up this morning, MP?
No, Grace. I think I'm looking forward to seeing the spirit of working together that was in this press release today with this meeting request by the UP and the NA. I'm just looking forward to seeing that spirit continue, whether they cancel their trip to Parlatino or they just commit to providing quorum when they're back. It's time to to actually uphold the Constitution. That is one thing that I think even in the previous parliament, no one ever really played games with. Politics gets set aside when you have to fulfill what the Constitution says, which is that Parliament needs to be 15 members. So I would urge them to, do some self-reflection this week. Tomorrow is a holiday, as you say, Ascension Day. So take the time to self-reflect. And yeah, when that meeting is recalled, I look forward to Mr. Kotai and Mr. Brooks being approved to then join us in Parliament after they're sworn in.
And that this will not have to go to court.
Yes.
Actually.
Yes.
So let's hope that's the case. Anyhow.
Indeed.
Radio listeners, I want to thank you. Of course, my guest this morning is the leader of the PFP party, MP Melissa Gumbs, joining me for the full hour. There's some very, very interesting information this morning regarding her candidate for as